We reduced our price target to 160. We reduced our estimate significantly, reduced our multiple to 160. But is there a risk that it goes further down? That depends upon what is the nature of that China iPhone miss. Are Chinese iPhone users simply walking away from the iPhone because it's too expensive, which is something that Apple can control and can fix? Or are these Chinese iPhone users walking away from the iPhone because of rising nationalism, which is not something that Apple can control? If it's the latter, then you are looking at potentially a secular declining or at least a resizing of that install base that could take years, much like the PC consumer install base took years to resize. And when that happened, the PC names, they traded at 7 to 8x multiple. And we don't know what that answer is, but there's certainly risk that there's still more downside here. But our valuation currently assumes that that does not definitively happen.
And Amit, is that the right way to think about this? Essentially a mature product category in hardware, but with a large installed base. Obviously, the market has basically compressed the valuation a lot at this point. So what do you have to assume to get the stock up toward your price target of, what, 185?
Yeah, I guess in our perspective, comparing it to the PC narrative, I think it's a little unfair because if you think about it, in that analogy, Apple not only makes the hardware, but also makes the software that actually design a lot of the semiconductor content. So perhaps in the PC analogy, Apple is HP plus Microsoft plus Intel together, and I think the summation of that actually did well through a flat PC environment. And really the point of that being, yes, the install base is saturated. There's no question about that. But there's a big potential to monetize this install base. And the silver lining you saw in the pre-announcement was 28% services growth, wearables growing up 50%. Units may not grow, but I think there's a room for them to monetize the install base and show better gross margin expansion as you go forward. Extend you get that, I think 15 multiple stocks should get to 180, 185 with relative ease over the next 12 months.
Nehal, when the president spoke about Apple, he said that the ultimate goal here is to get companies like Apple to manufacture in the United States and not in places like China. Is that possible?
Not in my opinion. If you think about what these ODMs make in terms of their gross margins, about 2 to 3%. So maybe China is generating 3 to 4% of those Apple revenue in terms of their GDP contribution. And then if you look at the OPEX as a percent of revenue, it's in the 10 to 12% range. And therefore, number one, I don't think it's critical that Apple does produce phones in the United States in terms of it boosting the economy. And number two, it's just not really very realistic because the supply chain has moved to the eastern side of the world. It would be a massive effort to not only bring that supply chain back, but also the knowledge set associated with being able to optimize these processes have moved to the eastern side of the world as well.